Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have the real right stuff. This is not The Right Stuff, which is a movie from a number of years ago. I think Clint Eastwood was in that one. And it's also not the Right Stuff series that's on Disney Plus as well. It's 8 episodes or so. This is the documentary. This is an hour and a half long, an hour and 30 minutes from 2020, and it tells the story of the space race as it took place in the late 50s, early 60s, all the way through our landing on the moon to in 1969. Now, the thing is, yeah, it's sort of the landing on the moon is not the focus. It's sort of like a epilogue kind of thing in a sense. It's what they're all leading to, putting a human being on another planetary body, which again, we're so saturated with Star Wars and Star Trek, and space travel is just another thing. Guardians of the Galaxy. It's you get on a spaceship like you get in your car and you fly to another planet and you get out, and there's never a problem with oxygen or never a problem with pressure or the depths of space totally being overwhelming, being trapped in a vacuum for endless vast periods of space, and yeah, all that stuff is sort of normalized as if it's something that is real. And even to this day, with the technology we have, it's not really that real. The astronauts we send up to the space station, the International Space Station, still, yeah, they can float around there without a pressure suit on, or but they still there's a lot going on there that we don't see, and it's not a a light consideration for just about anybody to do. It's not. Yes, sure. Different people are trying to make space travel like just taking a rocket up and then dipping down, and suddenly you're on the other side of the Earth in just 2-3 hours or whatever. That people, the technology is there and it's being built upon to make it possible, so you don't have to have years of training. But in this case, we're talking about the early stages. There's a point where they're interviewing some of the astronauts, and that have been chosen. And by the way, their first choice wasn't test pilots. Their first choices were like race car drivers and scuba divers and other people who from other areas. And they're like, you know what? Test pilots. Why don't we use test pilots? They're used to flying and pressure and G's and all sorts of stuff, and taking risks, and we already control them because they're part of the military and they have to do what we say. It's pretty much the after they decided, okay, yeah, let's have test pilots join the group. Who became astronauts? We know them as John Glenn, Alan Shepard. Let's say make sure Scott Carpenter and Gordon Cooper. Oh yeah, and also let's not forget Gus Grissom. There's a bunch more, but at first it was just a small group, about six or seven that that were in deep, intense training to do the early missions, and we were behind the Russians. It was very much a. For those of you who don't remember, I don't remember. I'm not that old. We were in the Cold War and we were hot against the Russians. It was a battle for everything when it came to the Russians. We had blue jeans, but they were the first in space, or at least the first ones to launch something in space. The Sputnik, depending on how you pronounce it. Then after that, it became a battle as to who we could put human. We put a chimpanzee in space just to test things, and he came back all right. But the real challenge is human beings, and what that would lead to is eventually, like I said, putting a man on the moon. But there was a lot to go through before then. Rockets blowing up on the launch pad repeatedly, with thankfully without humans. But these guys, they're a collection of characters, and yeah, they're test pilots. They're mavericks. They're cocky. They're whatever. They've got the rock and roll attitude, and they can get any babe in the bar. It's Top Gun. But now they're astronauts, and in many cases, they're the biggest celebrities on the planet for a very long time. Well, we are very public with who we're sending into space, but we never say who it is until like just before launch. The Russians are being super secretive. We eventually find out who it is, but they're super secretive of all their plans and who's involved and who might be going into space. Uh, but yeah, we get Alan Shepard, we get John Glenn, and a lot of the other names you might know. These guys, the story is told beautifully. Like I said, I normally watch stuff while I'm sitting at my computer. I have two monitors and at least, and one one sits over here, and I can watch Disney Plus as I work on things in the foreground. And I knew this was going to be something. I tried watching it for a few minutes, and like, there's a lot of text that appears on the screen every once in a while that tells you what's to frame the situation, and I realized I can't be doing these two things at the same time. So I decided I'm going to lay down on the couch and watch it, and I fell asleep. And so technically, I had to watch it a third time when I was a bit more awake and at least just sort of up and well rested. And it's not like it was boring. It's to me, it's not boring. You might find documentaries boring. You might find space travel or space exploration boring, or the 50s and 60s boring. But this is everything. But this is truly thrilling in the sense that in one of the interviews, man, that's a big loop back that I totally forgot I started with. In one of the interviews, they asked the astronauts what it was like, or the training and everything else, and what it means to them to be taking on this huge task. And one of them made a reference to the Wright brothers only 50 years prior. 50. We were learning to fly a few feet off the ground 50 years prior to trying to put a man in space. That's, I mean, at that period of time, it was then, planes used in war, and then commercial airline flights, and then sending people into space, and chimpanzees. That's an incredible level of progress in a very short time, considering how long humans have been on this planet. So you get the idea that, assuming we don't regress, we're fighting for it, seems like it, but assuming we don't regress culturally, technologically, who knows what we're capable of? And this story is kind of the foundation of that. Yeah, I mean, we pioneers of chuck wagons heading across the United States, forging new lands and everything else, or coming across in boats from Europe and beyond. Yeah, those are all very much big explorative steps. But this is unheard of. I mean, we take for granted that people live on other planets in our sci-fi. That it's not a big deal. It's not a wondrous thing. Oh, that guy's on Tatooine. Oh, that guy's on Vulcan. It doesn't mean anything. In fact, we're kind of jaded anytime that a rocket takes off or a person gets. We don't even make a big deal about it every time somebody flies off to hang out for a few months on the International Space Station. I don't remember the last time somebody went there or came back. It's not news. But this documentary shows us how it captured the imagination and the passion of everybody in America, pretty much everybody in America. People would camp out on the beaches down near Cape Canaveral just to watch this rocket from a distance, a huge distance, shoot off into space at any given hour, whenever it was clear for it to take off, because you know how it is with Florida and rain and everything else, and any other weather conditions that would stop it from taking off. For me, the most beautiful part of this, maybe not the most beautiful part, but a very beautiful part of this, is the restored footage, both audio and video, and how it's cleaned up. Some of it it's colorized a little bit, or a lot. I couldn't tell. That's kind of the crazy thing, is that in some cases I couldn't tell what was colorized and what was not. There were some things that were kept black and white, but there was some footage, like just footage of the parades, setting up the parades in New York for John Glenn, it almost looked like it was filmed last week. Almost. You know, it looks like it was filmed recently in the last few years, but it was shot in 1962. It's the upgrade they've done on this, especially probably if you, I don't know if you, it looks even better on 4K. I don't have a 4K television yet. I'm waiting for my right time. But 4K television, I can imagine how spectacular this looks. And there's also the footage they cleaned up incredibly during the the launches and the space travel and everything else. Uh, what I find really interesting is just I really never knew much about the characters of these guys. I think I saw the original film way back, but I've forgotten it. And I haven't seen the dramatized version of this. But this documentary doesn't shy away from the fact that these guys are unique characters, and the story also in a bit follows their wives as well, and their instant celebrity, and how suddenly they're making tons of money through a Life magazine, having control of their story, not control, but they have the rights to their stories as the wives of astronauts, because these are wives of women who are letting NASA, this new agency, private agency that's not government controlled, but working with the government, to launch their husbands into space, and they may not come back. I mean, the understanding is that you step inside that capsule, you probably won't be coming back. You might not be coming back, and you have, if not dozens, hundreds of people all working at different levels to make sure of every little detail. And the scary thing is, I didn't realize this, is that at least for Alan Shepard's launch, the very first one that he was able to go into space, he had no control over the vehicle. The point is that he was just a man strapped into a capsule that went up and then it went down. And the whole process took maybe 15 minutes, but the whole thing is that he's not like, hey, let me just steer it over here and, oh, something went wrong, let me just dodge that. It's he literally they put a human being, a meat sack in a bucket, threw it into the sky and let it drop. That is takes a tremendous amount of training, fortitude, and man, that's courage. I have to say it's a big deal. These guys, it's not a light thing that any of these guys did, and these guys were the start of it all, of us. I mean, yes, we've had stories of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and everything else decades before, H.G. Wells and all sorts of other things, but this was making it real, and we saw that it wasn't something simple, and this documentary brings that out, and I highly recommend it to you if you have any inkling of enjoying understanding what went into putting a man or men in space and on the moon. This is a documentary for you. You should take the time to enjoy it, preferably sitting up and drink in hand. And it's actually funny at times. The guys were incredibly humorous and clever. That got him a little bit of trouble here and there, but they were men of the 60s. So controversy flowed through this. And I imagine when I get to the Right Stuff series, we're going to see that in a full dramatic mode. So like I said, I think this is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen on space travel. This should be shown in schools. It's not super detailed. It's not the kind that's just very dry and technical, but it definitely brings out the story of the people, the passion that gripped America, and the struggle and the fight to make it so that America was first. So Get your little nationalism kick in there. All right, let's pick tomorrow's episode.
319.
319. Rah, rah, rah. 319. Not nationalism, but you know. Anyway. Man, we are just doing the documentaries. Sorry, guys, if you're hoping for more Mickey or princesses or Star Wars or Marvel or Pixar, but we're going to do another Nat Geo thing. I'm pretty sure this is. Yeah. We're going to get Lost on Everest. 319 Lost on Everest. All right. I know a bit about Everest. I've never been there, but I know some stories, and not all of them are good. So we could be in for an interesting little bit. I don't know if this is a series or a single, but we'll see. I'll talk about it tomorrow. All right? See you then.